So, morning. I asked you to come here today to brief you about the current occurrences in Israel, but also, and perhaps mainly, is to illustrate the feelings that we have since October 7 in Israel. You see, the 7th of October is the date that will be remembered in infamy in the history of our nation, as much as it should also be remembered, I think, in the history of humanity. Because this is a day that more than 1,300 of our citizens were slaughtered, were burned to death, were raped and paraded in the streets of Gaza, were beheaded. It's a day when babies were shot at point-blank range, executed, and when 199 of our citizens were taken hostages and are being tortured and mistreated in the Gaza Strip. We don't even know if they are alive. I want to show you some footage from there, and apologies again from the hard photos. Again, this is a baby, how much? 3-4 months old, with a diaper, shot in the head, executed from point blank range. This is a party. This is a party where a few thousands of people came to dance. It was a Jewish holiday. It was the day of Shabbat, the day of rest. This is how it ended. 300 were butchered. This is a family that was kidnapped, civilians kidnapped to the Gaza Strip. 2 children. We don't even know if they're still alive. And for this, I want to share with you a bit of a personal story. I was a consul general in Sichuan. I was the first consul general in Sichuan. In the year 2018, we initiated a joint agriculture project and training with Sichuan Agriculture University and the Foreign Experts Bureau. The first experts that came from Israel was in irrigation, because this is what we decided, that we will start sharing our knowledge with our friends from China in irrigation. Gadi Moses, this man came. As you can see, 6 years ago, he's not a young man. He did everything he could to share his knowledge with our Chinese friends. He came more than once. And he got his hands dirty, as we say. He really went to the field to understand all the conditions there and did everything to share the knowledge. He was kidnapped today together with his partner and her and her daughter and her children, 3 generations, 10 days ago. We don't even know if he's alive. You see, not a young person, a person that came here to China to share his knowledge. So in Israel now, we face what we all see as a wide agreement that now the war that we declare on Hamas terrorist organization and the rest of the terrorist organization in Gaza Strip is a war for our very existence. I want to dispel this. It's not another session of violence between us and the Hamas. Something happened in the 7th of October, something that will never, and we will never allow that it will happen again. It's a war on the peaceful existence of us as a nation. And I want to emphasize here one thing that I think that is a misconception. We declared a war on the Hamas terrorist organization, on the Hamas barbarian organization whose acts you just saw. We are not in war with the Palestinian people. We are in war with terrorists. We are in a war with people, I don't know if you can call them people. We are in a war with the beasts that committed these war crimes. We have the right and we have the obligation to defend our citizens and to take all necessary measures to protect our citizens, while of course, and I emphasize it, while of course committed to international law in military operation. And let me tell you that the terrorist organizations are not committed to that, as you just saw. But we are committed to defend our people, and we are committed to defend our borders. This is the basic duty of every country. Hamas is a long arm of the Iran. Without Iran, its financing and support, Hamas wouldn't be able to conduct the attack. And let me tell you something about Hamas, and by here also dispel some of the conceptions that I heard. Hamas' sole meaning, as mentioned in its charter, and by the way, Hamas meaning is the Islamic resistance movement, not exactly a peaceful movement, or neither is the jihadic Islam. Its sole aim, as it's mentioned again in its charter, is to destroy the state of Israel and establish a radical Islamic state instead. Two-state solution is not their interest. That's not their directive. That's not what they strive for. They strive to destroy the state of Israel, and they explicitly mention it in their charter. So all the discussions about the two-state solution, that's not Hamas. And neither is the jihadic Islam. Now, Hamas knowingly operates from civilian populated areas in the Gaza Strip. And we do anything possible to prevent harm to non-involved. We don't want to see innocent civilians in Gaza Strip getting killed, point. But they use schools, they use hospitals, they use mosques, and they use every civilian resident that they can to launch missiles, storm ammunition, and to serve as their headquarters. And it's our mission as part of our duty to protect our people to destroy these weapons depot, to destroy these launching pads for the rockets and their headquarters. And I want to mention one more thing. Hamas controls the Gaza Strip for nearly 20 years. We are not in the Gaza Strip for nearly 20 years. It's their own responsibility of what's happening there with their own population that, by the way, they also hold, as I just mentioned, as human shield. Now let me tell you a few words. What are our objectives here? Israel will act to depose the Hamas regime, destroy its military capabilities, and remove the terrorist threat, as well as remove the threat posed to Israel from the Gaza Strip. We will make maximum effort to resolve the hostage situation. Israel will protect its border and its citizens. Now, the current situation is the IDF has contacted the population in the northern Gaza Strip and warned them to evacuate to the southern part. Hamas is the one that prevents them to leave their houses safely and go to the south part of the Gaza Strip. Why? Because he will use them as human shield. And I want to say also something about the humanitarian issue. I don't know how many of you heard, but yesterday UNRWA, which is the refugee agency in the Gaza Strip, reported that 24,000 liters of gas, as long as medication, were stolen from its depots and headquarters, taken by people on trucks. Who do you think stole them? Hamas. Why? Because again, they don't care about their own civilians. They took it for their own use. They took it in order to continue with the barrage of missiles and rockets on Israel. So far, they have fired almost 7,000 rockets and mortar shells on Israeli cities. Again, we do not want to see uninvolved civilians getting killed. But I want to say another thing about the humanitarian point. And again, let me go back to the 199, at least, hostages, civilian, babies, elderly that are being kept in the Gaza Strip. We have babies there. They need food. We have old people there. Some of them Holocaust survivors. They need medication. We don't even know if they're alive. We didn't get a signal of life from them. That's far for the humanitarian issue. And I want to say another thing, and I'm taking you before the 7th of October. And again, the way that we see the Gaza Strip. Part of the Gaza Strip economy is based on people that are going to Israel to work. We, in recent months, increased the quota of people from Gaza, workers that can work in Israel, to 20,000. We've also increased the water supply to Gaza through Said Pool, and we also allowed more construction materials to go into the Gaza Strip. What we got in return? The 7th of October terrorist attack. It means that the attackers planned everything. They planned it for years. They used humanitarian supplies also to smuggle ammunition. They use the cement to build their tunnels and bunkers. They use steel to build and construct missiles. Their sole direction and directive is to eliminate the state of Israel. In the material that we will show you later, we found on the bodies of the terrorists detailed plans of what they have to do, explicitly including murdering and executing civilians. On one of the reports, on one of their so-called platoon commander, we found a report that he sent back to his headquarters, stated number of civilians executed, 70s. It stated there very, very clearly. So again, I want to emphasize a few points. Our war is not with the Palestinian people. Our war is with the Hamas terrorist organization. We will do whatever we need to do in order to protect our citizens and in order to protect our country. You see, the State of Israel was established in 1948 in our historic motherland after the trauma of the Holocaust. One of the things we said after the Holocaust, when 1/3 of the Jewish people in the world were brutally murdered by the Nazis, we say never again. And I say you here, the events of 7th of October will never again happen to Israeli civilians, and we will do everything now in order to make it happen. Thank you. I'm open for questions.
Questions from Hong Kong News. So what's the Israeli government's reactions to international concerns about Israel's actions in the Gaza? Because like on Sunday, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has said to Middle East countries leaders about Israel is acting out of scope of self-defense. So what's the reactions from Israeli government?
I think there is solidarity with Israel from a lot of countries. We have visits from state leaders from all over the world. President Biden will visit Israel tomorrow. We show foreign ministries from Italy, from Germany, from the Czech Republic, from France, many more countries visiting Israel. Hamas still has a lot of terrorist infrastructure inside the Gaza Strip. As part of what I just said, this will never happen again to Israeli citizens. Never again Israeli citizen will be raped, will be tortured, will be burned to death in Israel. We have to eliminate the terrorist abilities that Hamas still has.
China Daily, could you please verify the source of the videos that you showed us earlier? And secondly, what do you say to those who accuse Israel of ethnic cleansing because you've asked 1 million people to leave their homes, and that's in like 7 days, 1 million people, or even half a day. Put it all together. That's even more than the, I think some of the people in Africa, the wars there, 130 days. Yeah.
You know what is the source of some of the documents there? The terrorists themselves that documented themselves doing that while being proud of what they're doing. Okay? So this is worse than ISIS. They documented themselves and put it on social media. You know that in one of the cases that I didn't want to show you, there was a case of a terrorist taking a mobile phone from a grandmother, from an old lady, documenting himself killing her and putting it on her Facebook page so her family will find out that way. So this is the source. Some of it, the source is they are the source. It's their GoPro cameras and their own documentation prouding of the atrocities that they just committed. As I mentioned, we don't want to see civilians getting hurt in Gaza. That's why we gave them a warning to evacuate, because we don't want to see them. We don't want to see the civilians getting hurt, while we root out the Hamas terrorists and their infrastructure from that region.
And another question: what's the efforts of the evacuations that the efforts of evacuations for the Palestinians or any people in Gaza that Israeli government is doing?
Again, at the moment, what we warn the population in the northern Gaza Strip is to move to the southern part of Gaza Strip, where, by the way, we still provide water. And I'm not sure that by international law we should provide some of the things that we provide to a hostile entity, but they were advised to go to the southern part of the Gaza Strip.
So many Palestinians.
Does the Israel preparing a ground invasion into Gaza and destroy Hamas? As you have said, the target of this action is to focusing on Hamas. However, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are sheltering in the UN facilities in Gaza, and they are facing lack of fuels or water. So how can the authority to exclude them in the actions or in war? And last question, at least 4 Chinese citizens were dead in the crisis so far. So what actions can they take to protect themselves, no matter in Gaza or in Israel? Thank you.
Okay, let me answer. Again, our targets is places used by Hamas with his terrorist infrastructure, whether it's to launch missiles, headquarters, store ammunition, and so on. We do not target places that have pure civilian use. Pure civilian use. The terrorist has attacked and damaged citizens from 42 countries. 42 countries. You see, when you launch a barrage of missiles and rockets, they don't distinct between nationalities. Where they didn't distinct again is when they infiltrated Israel and they shot foreign nationals also from cold blood. You saw the photos. In one place they found 11 people from a certain Asian country that came to study agriculture in Israel. They killed 10 of them, cold-blooded. I hope it answers the question.
Several questions from ZBB Call News. So what are the current steps that the Israeli government is taking to ensure the safe passage of innocent Palestinian civilians along the Rafah border? The second question is, how does Israel see its relationship with Palestinian people, particularly in the West Bank, moving forward? And what are the future intentions of Israel in the Gaza Strip? Will there continue to be a blockade if Hamas is taken out of that territory?
First of all, as I mentioned, our aims at the near future is to destroy the Hamas terrorist capabilities. We do warn civilian population to get evacuated from places that they could be harmed. Other channels of assistance are being discussed, as far as also what will happen the day after. Again, you asked about the Palestinian Authority, and I will emphasize again, our war was declared on the Hamas. The Palestinian Authority is another channel.
So some describe your counterattack as another genocide. So what is your response to it, and under what conditions will Israel end the war with Hamas?
I have a question. You saw the photos that I showed you.
Yeah.
Okay. What is this if not a barbarian act against humanity? We do warn citizens to evacuate it from our areas. Hamas is the one that cynically used them to launch his terrorist attacks against Israeli townships.
There's a huge demonstration around the world that the Muslims support Palestine. So, Mr. Consul, do you have any words to the Muslims, including those in Hong Kong, that Israel is not wanting to enhance the hostile between the Muslim and Israel?
It's a good question. Again, our war is pointed at terrorist organization. It's not vis-a-vis other people. It's not vis-a-vis other religions. It's to eliminate the terrorist organizations that are controlling the Gaza Strip. That is a war in order to secure the well-being of our citizens and of our borders, and to make sure that Israeli citizens will not slaughtered in their bedrooms and in their houses and will not be burned to death there.
What kind of support will you provide really in Hong Kong?
We are in constant touch with the Israeli community here, and whatever needs they have, of course, they follow the situation. Their heart aches from this situation, it's a national tragedy. It's a national tragedy that will be burned into the history of the State of Israel. It's a date that will never be forgotten in our history, and I think all our compatriots here share this feeling.
Consul General, based on your country assessment, how long will this conflict last, and how will the Palestinian people be settled, as many complain they have been persecuted? And also, what is your assessment of this conflict's far-reaching impacts? Will it escalate into a much bigger conflict in the Middle East or beyond, with more countries joining forces? Will there be a risk of a third world war?
First of all, I don't want to put a time tag on this war, because this war is defined by our goals, which I just stated, to eliminate the terrorist infrastructure of Hamas, to make sure that our hostages are coming back home safely, and to depose the Hamas regime. We don't want this conflict to expand to other areas. We don't want it to happen. We do see that Hezbollah in the north, that is a terrorist organization completely controlled by Iran, is initiating some fire incidents on Israeli civilians and Israeli military targets. We are retaliating. We don't want this to spread, but if we will be challenged and attacked from other areas, we have the means to strike back.
Conjen, what about the update on the humanitarian corridor that Gaza shares with Egypt? Is Israel involved in any talks?
As I mentioned, when we look at this humanitarian support, I just gave you the example of how humanitarian equipment that should have been used for Gazians, civilians, were stolen from UNRWA, from the refugee association in Gaza. Okay, I think it's a very good example how humanitarian support that still exists in the Gaza Strip is viciously misused by the terrorist organization there.
Sir, you mentioned about the two-state solution. It seems you are not very agreeing with that, but China has called for it. So, do you think China's support is not enough in this stage? And also, China has kind of adopted a so-called neutral stance. But do you think it's a pro-Palestine neutral eye?
I'll answer into it. First of all, I want to make myself clear. I didn't say anything about the two-state solution. I just said that mentioning the two-state solution in the context of Hamas is wrong, because Hamas doesn't have any plan for the two-state solution. Hamas has only one plan: to destroy the state of Israel and establish a radical Islamic state instead. That's what I was saying. Regarding China, let me tell you, I lived in China many years. Okay, I lived in China 11 years, mainland 9, 2 more in Hong Kong. And I know how much, and I'm being frank here, I know how much respect is between the two people, of shared history, of long history, and of common values. 11 days ago, 1,300 of Israeli citizens were butchered and slaughtered in their houses. You all saw the photos. Tell me how to call the people that perpetuated these crimes, if not terrorists. Okay, maybe barbarians. But this is the way that they should be treated, and this is the way that we expect our friends also to understand our pain and to understand that the attacks on Gaza, it's another thing that is important to us, that they didn't happen from the thin air. Saturday last week was a Jewish holiday. We didn't have any plans to attack the Gaza Strip. On the contrary, like I demonstrated to you, in the time before that, we have allowed more support for the Gaza Strip. We have allowed more people from the Gaza Strip to work in Israel and to provide welfare for their families. We didn't initiate the attacks in the Gaza Strip that are happening now. We didn't want that. It's the Hamas that declared war on Israel, and you know what, also on its own people that he holds as hostages.
Do you think the two-state solution is a possible way to ease harm?
I think that at the moment we have one goal, is to finish this war and finish this war when the Hamas doesn't have any means to control the Gaza Strip and definitely doesn't have any means to strike terrorist attack like he did 10 days ago.
Do you mean that there's no space for peace talks? And do you think that's why Joe Biden is visiting Israel?
I mean that at the moment we are striving to get our targets, which are just specified. And let me tell you something else. We are pro-peace, okay? And the concept of the Abraham Accords that 3 years ago saw few other Arab countries signing diplomatic and peace agreements with Israel, that is the right path. And this is the path that we will follow with whomever reaches our hand to peace. But Hamas is a terrorist organization. They don't want peace. It's not their aim. Their aim is to destroy the state of Israel. And our sacred duty is to defend and eliminate such organization.
Mr. Consul General, this is a hardest day for the Israel people. I'm sympathetic to that.
Thank you.
I want to know that does these attacks dealt a serious blow to foreign investment to Israel, and how the Israeli government secure the business interests of the foreign companies doing business there, especially Hong Kong business?
Okay. First of all, Israel will be startup nation. The origins of the Israeli spirit is there, of innovation, creativity. We have 8,000 tech companies in Israel. They are there. They will stay there. And the fountains of ideas in Israel and the potential is still there and will remain there. Yes, we are now in a state of war. We will eliminate the terrorists, but the economy will blossom back.
May I know how about the attack affect the running of the Consul General? For example, any Israel officers have come back to Israel to join the military service, or the security levels of the Consul General, is it raised or not?
Our consulate is all here. We are united. We have solidarity, and we are on confidence in the just war that we are facing. It's really, you have to understand, I really want to share with you our feelings here. Never in the history of Israel we suffered so many casualties from one terrorist attack. And it's not only the number, it's the way that they were slaughtered, raped, children beheaded. You know, in one places they pile up children and they set them on fire. Who behaves like that if not barbarian terrorists? So we are united in the consulate because we all understand the just cause of this war for our very existence.
Sir, I want to know the man attacked in Beijing was chopped. Do you have any more information or response on it?
Yes. First of all, and I will also share with you, after living in China so many years, also my own feeling. China, for me, including Hong Kong, is a safe place. Okay, you know what? I'll even say more than that. It's one of the most safest places I have ever been. I always felt safe in China, me and my family. But this incident is something that, you know, is concerning, because one of our diplomats was attacked in Beijing. Now, again, I know that the authorities will do their utmost to be attentive and to make sure of the well-being of our diplomats and our citizens in China. I know that, okay? I have no doubts in that. And again, China is a safe country, one of the safest. I also want to use this opportunity to share with you that recently, and it's also addressing some of the questions that I was asked. Recently, we have witnessed in social media some poisonous talkbacks and some poisonous articles that also created a rise in anti-Semitism, hatreds of Jews. Our aim is to destruct a terrorist organization that did barbarian crimes. We don't want it to slide into hatred. We don't want it to slide into religious hatred. So I want to use this opportunity to call for here to make sure that the discussions also in social media do not slide into incitement, do not slide into racism. We do want to promote the coexistence. We do want to strive for peace. But we do it after we eliminate the terrorists that do not want to do it.
On China response, do you think China has been supportive enough?
I think that we would. There were some discussions between Chinese officials and Israeli officials. I think that the barbarian slaughtering of 1,300, the kidnapping of 200 innocent civilians, of babies and elderly, should require condemnation from all the international community, let alone from our friends. Any more questions? If somebody wants that we will show the movie again to people that didn't want it, we'll be happy to do so now. Happy is clearly not the word to say about this film, which is really horrible.